for our next one, I'm doing a graded 2-color wash. This one is essentially going to be a sunset. I'm going to do wet on wet again. I'm essentially doing the exact same thing that I did over here for the graded 1-color wash. The other thing I want to mention to you is your basic setup. I'm right-handed, so I put everything over on my right side. I'm less likely to drip. But if in this circumstance, if I'm working all the way over here, it may make sense to move my water over here. Okay, thoroughly wet. Now I'm gonna move over and do something different. Let's use blue. And I'm basically trying to make a sunset. I'm gonna reproduce the graded 1-color wash. So using my brush like a blade at a 45-degree angle and slowly applying more pressure to the page. I can really take my time going back and forth and back and forth. The only thing that I'm fighting is the drying of the paper. So I need to move fast enough so that doesn't dry, but as long as I keep moving my brush across the page, it should be all right. Try not to let it become a pyramid where it gets smaller and smaller. Take it about 3/4 of the way up. Now I've just redone graded 1-color wash for you. That turned out well. Clean my brush thoroughly and move into a different color. So now I'm going to start at the bottom here. Make sure you're happy with that, and then slowly move up the page about 3/4 of the way up. What you want is a beautiful gradation like a sunset. What you don't want is a European flag where it's like blue and then white and then orange. You want just a beautiful flow from one color to the next. So that is the graded 2-color wash, which is and must be wet on wet. Pause. Next, cast shadow. Let me explain real quick. So I've got a highlight on the top of my hand. Actually, you can kind of see here, I've got highlight here, I see shadow here. Or we could say I've got shadow on the bottom of my hand, which I won't be able to show you in the video. And then finally, I've got cast shadow on the table surface. So a cast shadow tells me that my hand is making contact with the table. There's a cast shadow underneath it. It's not levitating above. So cast shadows are important because they ground objects. So for example, I could draw something very basic like a cup. So that's my object. And let's say I've got, the sun is right here. So I've got my highlight happening here. I've got my shadow happening here. And I probably have a cast shadow happening here. Now, the way that you would paint the cast shadow, I'm going to start with my big wash brush, and I would in theory want very clean water. I'm going to paint my cast shadow area wet on wet, and I'm going to do it beyond the area where I actually want the cast shadow to be. However, I'm not going to let any of the water from the wet on wet enter the object that I'm painting, because the paint only goes where the water is. So it will not go into the object if I paint around the object with water. I'm going to switch to a slightly smaller brush, and let's say we're going to have a green cast shadow. So as you can see, the paint is not entering the object area. It is spreading below gently. And I'm going to basically recreate that technique where it just slowly fades out. And there's my cast shadow. I make that look easier than it is. It's a very difficult technique, and it's one that we use all the time. So definitely keep reviewing the video. Try it a few different times, and I'll let you pause and do that one. The final one I want you to do is a different kind of cast shadow that I've created. I've never seen this in a book, but I use it absolutely all the time on things like noses. So I'm going to show you how I draw a nose. Very basic. I do a U or a V shape or a flying bird shape in parentheses. Very basic drawing of a nose. What I do, normally I'm working smaller than this, and I would use my smallish brush. This is a 00. In the studio here I have a 000. I'm actually, I think because this is so large, I'm going to scale up to a slightly larger brush. This is a 4 round. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, let's mix a brown actually, so it's more believable as a skin tone. That's a little yellow. Let's add a little bit of red to it. Let's add a little bit of blue to it, and there's a skin tone. So now I'm just going to do some wet on dry basic outlines of the nose. Now, this is assuming I've already painted my skin tone, which in this case I have not. But this is the shadow I would add over that. So I want to get some of the drips out of the brush, putting it on the paper towel so it's not drippy, but it is damp. So now I'm going to gently press the medium-sized brush to the paper. I need just a little more water here. And so what I'm doing is I'm gently smudging half of that line. One half is going to remain a really hard edge. The other half, I'm just smudging it out. Almost like taking my finger along the edge of a charcoal or graphite drawing. There I go again. So I'm just re-wetting the edge. So I'm originally applying it wet on dry, and then quickly afterwards I'm going in and I'm just blurring out that line to create a gradation with an edge. And I'll sometimes turn the paper so that I have better dexterity as I'm working. It is absolutely essential to me to have clean water and a paper towel so that I can, or a towel so that I can regulate the amount of water in my brush. Very important. And that is the last one. I hope this was helpful. I'm sure there will be more questions in the future, so you can always write to me. Thanks.